Do you ever feel like your brain is just, well, full? Like there's way too much information flying at you. It's hard to focus. Maybe learning feels tougher than it used to.
Oh, absolutely. Or maybe you catch yourself thinking, my memory's shot, or, I'm just not smart enough for this kind of thing.
Yes. If any of that sounds familiar, you are definitely not alone. It feels like the default setting these days, doesn't it? All the notifications, the constant stream.
It really is. Feeling overwhelmed, learning a bit of a slog. It's super common in this digital age.
But what if those feelings, those limits, aren't actually fixed? What if they're just because you haven't found the right strategies for using the incredible brain you already have?
Exactly. And that's really what we're digging into today. We've been looking at excerpts from Jim Kwik's book, Limitless. The full title is Limitless. Upgrade your brain, learn anything faster, and unlock your exceptional life.
Right. And his whole argument is that unlocking this huge potential isn't some kind of magic trick for a select few. He thinks it's possible for, well, everyone if they have the right approach.
Yeah, a practical framework. So our mission in this deep dive is to pull out the really key insights from the material you shared with us, the surprising bits, the actionable stuff.
We want to help you unpack his core ideas,
Ah.
this mindset, motivation, and method framework he talks about, so you can actually upgrade how you learn and, honestly, how you approach things day to day.
Think of us as guides pointing out the real gems in these pages, the things that might genuinely shift how you see your own brain and what it's capable of.
Okay, so let's dive in.
Yeah.
I think starting with Jim Kwik's own story makes a lot of sense. It's pretty powerful and really explains why he's so passionate about this.
Yeah, he's very open about it. He had a pretty serious head injury as a kid. And it wasn't just, bump on the head. It really impacted his learning in school.
And his self-perception too, right?
Hugely. There's this one moment he describes. It sounds just awful. A teacher, frustrated with him, actually pointed him out and said, "That's the boy with the broken brain."
Oh, wow. As a child, that's brutal.
Imagine. And that label from a teacher, it just stuck. He internalized it completely. He talks about how whenever he struggled, failed something, felt behind, that voice was just there. His brain was broken.
Yeah, you can see how that would just crush your self-worth and become this huge internal wall.
Definitely. And then adding to that, he watched his grandmother go through dementia. He speaks about how hard that was, seeing her fade, feeling like he was losing her over and over.
And he connects that experience to his later passion for brain health.
Directly. It fueled his desire to understand how the brain works and how to keep it healthy, vibrant.
Okay, so he's carrying all this,
Right.
but then there's a turning point, right? A mentor figure.
Yes, a pivotal moment. This mentor took him to a room just crammed with books. Kwik says at the time, given his struggles, it felt terrifying, like a room full of snakes.
I can almost picture that. So what did the mentor do?
Just put his fingers on Kwik's temples and said, basically, that's the key.
Meaning the brain itself. That's the key to unlocking things.
Exactly. And then came this challenge. Read one book a week.
Wow. For someone struggling like he was, that must have seemed impossible.
Totally daunting. And that's when the mentor dropped that line, the paraphrase often linked to Mark Twain, "Don't let school interfere with your education."
Oh, I love that. It immediately separates learning from just schooling.
Precisely. It opened up this idea of self-directed learning. That started him off, but there was another big moment. He saw a waitress, get this, memorize orders for 18 people, no notepad.
18 people, seriously. Without writing it down, that sounds like a superpower.
Right. That's exactly how it struck him. Impossible. And that's why he calls her his Roger Bannister.
Like breaking the 4-minute mile, something everyone thought was impossible until someone did it.
Exactly. She shattered his mental barrier. She showed him, in a real-world way, that the brain could do things he thought were fundamentally impossible. It completely changed his belief about what his own brain might be capable of.
So all those experiences, the injury, the label, his grandmother, the mentor, the waitress, they all kind of converged.
They ignited his mission. He realized, okay, if knowledge is power, then learning is our superpower. And crucially, that superpower isn't fixed. It's something we can develop. We just need to know how.
And that's where his whole framework of mindset, motivation, and methods comes from, teaching people the how.
Which brings us right to the challenges we all face today, the things getting in the way of that superpower. He calls them the modern-day supervillains attacking our brains.
Okay, let's name names. Villain number 1.
Digital overload. It's just the sheer volume. The sources mention the statistic, the amount of info created from the dawn of civilization up to 2003. We now create that amount every 2 days.
Every 2 days. That's
Yeah.
mind-boggling. just trying to process that number is overwhelming.
Tell me about it. And think about how we try to cope. Constant multitasking, right?
Yeah.
Switching between emails, texts, websites, work.
Yeah, thinking we're being efficient.
But we're not. The sources bring in neuroscientist Daniel J. Levitin, who explains that all this rapid task switching actually burns through our brains fuel the oxygenated glucose it needs.
So it's literally draining the tank, the energy we need just to focus.
Exactly. It leaves us feeling exhausted, distracted, and makes it way harder to actually learn or retain anything deeply. Multitasking is basically kryptonite for focus.
Okay, that's overload. What's villain number 2?
Digital deduction. This is the idea that we're outsourcing our thinking, relying on technology to do things our brains used to do.
Like always using GPS instead of navigating, or instantly searching a fact instead of trying to recall it.
Precisely. Manfred Spitzer even coined the term digital dementia for this. The idea is that if you don't use those short-term memory pathways, they can actually start to weaken, like an unused muscle.
Digital dementia. That's a scary thought. If you never have to remember a phone number or directions, those circuits just don't get fired up.
Right. It's a strong argument. But, to be fair, the source material also asks, well, is outsourcing always bad?
Ah, the counter argument.
Yeah. Could it maybe free up mental bandwidth for, higher level stuff, creative thinking, problem solving? Is the brain maybe less like a hard drive that gets full and more like a muscle that strengthens with focused use, even if some routine tasks are handled by tech?
That's a really interesting question. It's not just black and white then.
No. And it really makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How is your relationship with technology affecting your focus and memory? Are you using tech intentionally, or is it maybe unconsciously replacing some core thinking skills, something for all of us to chew on?
Definitely. Okay, so we have these villains, overload and deduction, lurking around. How do we fight back? How do we unlock that limitless potential Kwik talks about?
This is where his 3Ms framework comes in. Mindset, motivation, and method. They all work together.
And he says it all starts with mindset, right? That's the foundation.
Absolutely. It's about your underlying beliefs, your assumptions about yourself, and what you think is possible for you, what you believe about your own brain.
And a huge piece of this is understanding neuroplasticity.
Oh, it's massive and so liberating. For so long, the common idea was, your brain kind of sets in concrete after your teens or early 20s.
Yeah, that you're kind of stuck with the brain you got.
But we know now that's just completely wrong. Your brain can change, it can adapt, it physically rewires itself by forming new connections throughout your entire life, every single time you learn something new.
So learning literally upgrades your brain's hardware. That's incredible. And each brain is unique, right? Shaped by genes, but also by everything we do and experience.
Exactly. Learning physically changes you. But even with this amazing potential, we often block ourselves with limiting beliefs.
The inner critic.
Yep. Kwik calls them LIEs, limited ideas entertained.
Yep.
Or sometimes BS belief systems. It's that voice saying, I'm not smart enough, I'm too old for this, I just have a terrible memory.
He mentions iceberg beliefs, too, the ones hidden deep down.
Yeah, those sneaky ones below the surface that kind of dictate our reactions and hold us back without us realizing they're there. The sources pull out some specific lies of learning that are really common.
Okay, like what? Give me one.
Lie number 1, intelligence is fixed. The idea you're born with a certain IQ and that's it.
So pervasive. What's the counter?
It's not about how smart you are, but how you are smart. Intelligence isn't some static number, it's fluid. It's a mix of your attitude and your actions. You can absolutely develop it.
I really like that reframe, how you are smart. Okay, what's another big lie?
Lie number 2, the one everyone's heard. We only use 10% of our brains.
Oh yeah, that myth is everywhere.
It's totally a myth. The source even quotes a neurologist calling it so wrong, it's almost laughable. We use all of our brain, just maybe not all at the same time or, crucially, not always effectively. The key isn't unlocking dormant parts. It's learning to use the whole thing better.
Got it. So optimize what's there. Don't wait for magic. What else?
Lie number 3, mistakes are failures. This one's so ingrained, isn't it? Especially from school.
Definitely. Red marks, bad grades.
But Kwik argues mistakes aren't the end point. They're feedback. They're how you learn. The sources use that Einstein quote, a person who never made a mistake never tried anything new.
Makes sense. If you're not making mistakes, you're probably not stretching yourself.
Exactly. And they mentioned Carol Greider, the Nobel Prize winner who struggled with dyslexia. She'd built amazing memorization skills to cope. And that process actually helped her develop her scientific, problem-solving genius. The struggle became a path to strength.
Wow. Turning a challenge into an advantage, that's powerful stuff.
It really is. And jumping ahead a bit, line number 7. Genius is born, not made.
Ah, the natural talent idea.
Right. The counter is, genius can be trained. It's built. Think of Bruce Lee. He wasn't born into privilege. He faced huge challenges, but achieved mastery through relentless learning and dedicated practice.
So the idea that some people just have it and others don't, that's another limiting belief we need to ditch.
Precisely. And to counter that further, the sources talk about multiple forms of genius, like dynamo genius for ideas, blaze for communication, tempo for finishing things consistently, steel for details.
So everyone has their own unique blend.
Exactly. The point is you have your own unique genius combination. It's about finding and using your way of being smart, not fitting some narrow definition.
That feels way more empowering than just thinking about a single IQ score. And does mindset affect more than just learning?
Oh, yeah. The sources link a positive mindset directly to things like better physical health, lower risk of heart attack, for instance. And positive emotions like joy or curiosity actually prime your brain to build skills more effectively. It's not just fluffy stuff. It's functional.
Okay, so if we understand neuroplasticity and we know we need to tackle these limiting beliefs, how do we actually do that? What are the methods?
Good question. The sources suggest a few practical steps. First, you got to talk back to that inner critic. When the negative thought comes up, challenge it. Ask, is that really true?
Don't just accept it.
Right. Second, get factual. What's the actual evidence for or against this belief? Usually, the limiting belief crumbles under scrutiny. And third, based on those facts, consciously create and repeat a new, empowering belief. Replace the LIE with truth.
Talk back, find the facts, create a new belief. Okay, that sounds actionable.
So once you start working on that mindset, believing change is possible, you need the drive to actually do the work. That's motivation, the second M.
And Kwik has a formula for this one too, right?
Yep, motivation, purpose X, energy X, S3.
Purpose times energy times S3. Okay, break that down. Purpose.
This is your why. Why bother learning this? Why push through the difficulty? It's critical for sticking with anything. Kwik's own purpose, from his story, is helping others avoid the struggles he faced. That's a powerful driver.
And purpose isn't always the same as passion.
They're related, but distinct in the sources. Passion is more about experimenting, finding what lights you up, rediscovering your authentic self. Purpose often grows out of that passion, or sometimes even out of overcoming a major struggle. It's the contribution you want to make based on what matters to you.
So finding your why is key. And what about identity in motivation?
Hugely important. The sources stress the power of I am statements. What follows those two words shapes your reality, your habits. Part of motivation is dismantling limiting identities, like I am a slow learner, and consciously building empowering ones, like I am someone who figures things out.
That ties right back into mindset again, changing those core beliefs.
Exactly. They reinforce each other. Okay, next to the formula, energy. This is crucial. Your brain, remember, uses about 20% of your body's total energy.
Wow, that much.
Yeah, it's an energy hog. So managing your physical and mental energy isn't just nice to have, it's absolutely fundamental for having the ability and the motivation to learn and perform.
And this is where all the brain health stuff comes in.
Precisely. It's about fueling that energy. The sources mention the gut-brain connection, this whole enteric nervous system, sometimes called the second brain, lining your gut.
Right, connected by the vagus nerve, using the same neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine.
And get this, the ENS, your gut brain, can actually make new neurons even in adulthood. So what you eat and your gut health directly impact your brain's energy, mood, and function.
That's wild. So the brain health practices are really about energy management.
Exactly. Things like nutrition, eating actual brain foods. The sources give examples like cocoa, cinnamon, ginger, or nutrients like DHA, B vitamins, curcumin, good fuel-in.
Makes sense. What else?
Sleep, non-negotiable. Your brain absolutely needs it to consolidate memories, clear out waste, just function properly.
And exercise helps with sleep, right?
Yes. And exercise also directly benefits brain function, improves blood flow, releases helpful chemicals. It's a double win. Better sleep, better brain.
It's all connected. Keep going.
Stress management. Chronic stress floods your system with cortisol, which is terrible for learning and memory. Even simple things, like a few minutes of focused breathing or meditation, can help dial that down.
Okay. What else for energy?
A clean environment, literally decluttering your workspace, can reduce mental clutter and improve focus. And having a positive peer group, the people you hang out with, influence your energy and mindset.
Surround yourself with supportive people. Got it. Okay, purpose, energy. What's S3?
S3 is small, simple steps. This is key for overcoming that feeling of being overwhelmed by a big goal.
Break it down.
Exactly. Instead of, I need to learn this whole textbook, make it, I'll read one page. Instead of, I need to floss regularly, just I'll floss one tooth. These tiny achievable steps build momentum and confidence. Micro successes lead to bigger ones.
Ah, making it feel easy to start. I like that. Remove the intimidation factor.
Precisely. And speaking of motivation, the sources talk about the flow state as like the ultimate motivational experience.
Being in the zone where everything just clicks.
Yeah. Total immersion, time flies, peak performance. The sources mention 4 stages to getting there. Struggle the initial effort, release letting go of the tension, flow itself, and then consolidation, integrating the experience.
So how do you deliberately trigger flow? Can you?
You can increase the odds. The sources give tips like set aside dedicated, uninterrupted time, maybe 90 minutes or so. Pick something you actually enjoy or care about. Have a clear goal for that session. Challenge yourself just enough slightly beyond your comfort zone, but not so much it's frustrating.
The sweet spot of challenge.
Right. And make sure you feel capable. And remove lack of conviction by having the skills and passion ready. Basically, set the stage for focus and engagement.
Okay, so mindset is believing you can learn. Motivation is having the drive to learn. But how do you actually do it effectively? That brings us to the third M method.
Exactly. And this is where Kwik argues traditional education often fails us. We're taught what to learn, facts, dates, formulas, but rarely how to learn efficiently. In today's world, you have to take charge of your own learning methods.
And those old study habits most of us used probably weren't great, like cramming the night before an exam.
Terrible. Or rote learning, just repeating something over and over without really thinking about it. Like saying, Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492 50 times. It's boring, and it doesn't stick.
Yeah, I remember doing that. Doesn't work well.
The forgetting curve shows why. With that kind of passive repetition, you could forget something like 85% of it within just 48 hours. You might recognize it if you see it again, but you can't actively recall it when needed.
Ouch. Okay, so what's a better method for remembering things?
One of the most powerful is active recall. This is huge. Instead of just rereading your notes or the chapter.
Which feels productive, but maybe isn't.
Right. With active recall, you read a section, then you close the book, put away the notes, and force yourself to actively retrieve the information. Say it out loud, write it down from memory, then check back against the source, see what you missed, and focus on recalling that.
So you're pulling it out of your brain, not just passively putting it in. That makes sense. Build stronger connections.
Massive difference for long-term retention. Another area for method upgrade, listening. Most people, honestly, aren't great listeners. The stats are pretty bad, recalling only about 25% after 10 minutes, losing 75% within 2 days.
Wow. So much goes in one ear and out the other.
Pretty much.
Oh.
Kwik offers a mnemonic. Here are.
H-E-A-R. What's that stand for?
H is halt. Stop what you're doing, eliminate distractions, be fully present. E is empathy. Try to understand the speaker's perspective. A is anticipate. Lean in, be curious, ask yourself what you might learn. And R is review. Briefly summarize or jot down key points afterward.
Halt, empathy, anticipate, review. It's about active engagement, not just passive hearing.
Exactly, using your whole brain. And that ties into effective note-taking, too.
How so?
Well, the goal isn't just to transcribe everything the speaker says that's impossible and not very helpful. Good note-taking means having a clear purpose for the notes, actively listening while you write, and crucially, using your own words to summarize and synthesize the ideas.
Processing it as you go, not just copying.
Right. It forces you to engage. And speaking of methods, the sources make a strong case for memory training itself. It's not just something you're born with.
You can actually train your memory.
Definitely. The example they use is Joshua 4. He was a journalist covering the U.S. Memory Championship, thought these people had photographic memories. But then he learned the techniques, trained for a year, and came back and won it.
No way. From average Joe to memory champ in a year.
Yep. Proof positive it's a skill you can develop with the right methods. He uses the mnemonic MOM for remembering things. Motivation, you need to want to remember it. Observation, you need to actually pay attention and notice the details. And methods, you need the techniques like association, visualization, etc.
Motivation, observation, methods. Makes sense. You need the why, the focus, and the how.
Exactly. And another crucial how method for today is speed reading. With the sheer volume of information, being able to read faster and comprehend better is almost a necessity.
It sounds intimidating, though. Does it actually work without losing comprehension?
The sources argue yes, and that it actually improves focus and comprehension because you're more engaged. It's presented as a brain workout, good for memory, focus, vocabulary, even imagination.
Okay, so how do you do it? What's the basic technique?
The core method mentioned is using a visual pacer, like your finger or a pen, moving smoothly under the line of text as you read.
Why does that help?
It guides your eyes, reduces regressions, going back over words,
Mm.
and helps minimize subvocalization, that little voice reading along in your head, which slows you down to speaking speed. The sources mention Sarah who tripled her reading speed using this.
Tripled. Wow, just by using her finger. That seems almost too simple.
Simple but effective for breaking old habits. It takes practice, of course.
Okay, so methods for getting information in better. What about methods for thinking better, processing and using the information?
Great question. The sources cover thinking techniques too, ways to improve reasoning and problem solving.
Like what?
One is the 6 thinking hats method. Heard of that?
Vaguely. Remind me.
It's a way to deliberately look at a situation or problem from 6 distinct perspectives, symbolized by different colored hats.
Yep.
White hat, just the facts, data.
Hmm.
Yellow hat, positives, benefits. Black hat,
Hmm.
negatives, risks, caution. Red hat, emotions, feelings, intuition. Green hat, creativity, new ideas, alternatives.
Yeah.
And blue hat, managing the thinking process itself, the overview.
So you force yourself or your team to think in each mode, not just get stuck in one.
Exactly. Ensures a more rounded view. Another technique is second-order thinking.
An order, meaning?
Thinking beyond the immediate consequences. So you make a decision or something happens, what's the first result? Okay. But then what happens and what happens after that? Considering the ripple effects down the line.
Like playing chess. Thinking several moves ahead.
Kind of, yeah. The sources use Peter Thiel's long game against Gawker as an example. Thinking years ahead. It's about asking, and then what? Repeatedly. Considering different time frames.
That seems vital for avoiding unintended consequences. What's the last thinking technique?
Exponential thinking. This isn't just about doing things faster or better. It's about finding a completely different, potentially game-changing approach. Thinking outside the linear box.
How does that work?
It involves identifying the real underlying problem, not just the symptom. Then, brainstorming radically new approaches using what-if questions.
Yeah.
Then researching those possibilities and extrapolating, playing out scenarios based on that exponential shift.
So digging deep for the core issue, imagining a totally different way, and exploring where that might lead sounds powerful for innovation.
It really is a different way to frame problems.
Okay, so putting it all together, to really unlock that limitless potential, you need to work on your mindset, your beliefs about what's possible. Then cultivate your motivation, the purpose, energy, and small steps. And finally, actively use effective methods for learning, remembering, and thinking.
That's the core framework. And it's really important to remember, all of this sits on that foundation of basic brain health. We talked about the nutrition, the sleep, the exercise, stress management.
Right, that provides the essential energy to even apply the methods and sustain the motivation. You can't really do the M's without taking care of the basics.
Exactly. It's a truly holistic system.
So we started this deep dive talking about those really common feelings, being overwhelmed, feeling stuck, limited in our learning.
Yeah, those modern frustrations.
But exploring these ideas from Jim Kwik's Limitless, it seems clear those feelings don't have to be permanent states. They're challenges, yes, but challenges with strategies to overcome them.
Absolutely. The core message that really comes through is that your capacity to learn, to grow, to adapt, it isn't fixed. It truly can be limitless, or at least vastly more expansive than most of us believe.
You just need to first challenge those limiting beliefs you hold about yourself. And second, start applying some of these practical strategies.
And the key thing the sources emphasize is just to start. Don't feel you have to implement everything overnight. That would be overwhelming in itself.
Right. Pick one thing.
Yeah. Try one method, like using a visual pacer for reading. Challenge one specific limiting belief you notice popping up. Take one small, simple step towards a learning goal. That's where the change begins.
As Kwik puts it, you're the superhero of your own story, right? And these are the tools, the mindset shifts, the motivation tactics, the learning methods to help you unlock those innate abilities.
The potential that's already there, just waiting to be tapped into.
So maybe a good thought to leave everyone with, something to kind of mull over.
Yeah.
Think about it. What's one limit maybe about your intelligence, your memory, your ability to learn something specific that you've kind of just accepted about yourself? Maybe for years. And what might actually happen, what exciting possibilities could open up if you decided to consciously challenge just that one limit starting today?